Hello, ladies and gentlemen of YouTube. Welcome back to Musically Sound, the music review show. Today, Blue Öyster Cult, self-titled album. This album is number 5, my top 5. Going forward after this album, albums will be in no certain order. They will just be albums that have influenced my musical taste and how they have impacted maybe the music industry or whatnot. But this album I was introduced to after I graduated from college. I was living with some friends, post-college bachelor pad, we'll say, and I was getting farther, deeper into the early 70s rock, kind of not so much drifting away from heavy metal, but getting farther into the base of early 70s rock and the rabbit hole that it is. And Blue Öyster Cult, I had a best of, and I'd heard a lot of the songs, but I'd never heard any of the normal album or the regular albums. So I said, I'm just going to seek out the first album. So I went my local music store, bought the first album. I took it. It was a slow burn for me. A slow burn. But before I get into that, a little background on Blue Öyster Cult. Blue Öyster Cult was formed in 1969 in Long Island, New York, by a group of NYU students. Eric Broom, guitar and vocals. Brothers Albert Bouchard on drums and Joe Bouchard on bass. Alan Lanier on keyboards, synth, and guitar. And Donald Buckdharma Roser on lead guitar. Phenomenal guitarist. You can hear his guitar work prominently on all the albums. And just some of the intricacies and the melodies and the solos. Oh my God, the solos that he put forth on these albums, this one in particular, just excellent. According to Rock and Roll, Rolling Stone Encyclopedia of Rock and Roll, they were a semi-satiric exponents of high decibel apocalypse. Blue Öyster Cult forged an unlikely alliance between teen tastes and critical appeal, and were major heavy metal band from the mid-70s through the 80s. Now, I would use heavy metal kind of loosely because in the early 70s it wasn't as well defined, and it wouldn't become as defined as it is now until Judas Priest and Motorhead and the new wave of British heavy metal bands would come along in the late 70s, early 80s. The group goes back to 1967 when future rock critic R. Meltzer and future Cult producer Sandy Pearlman, who is of note, students at the State University of New York at Stony Brook decided to organize a band. Along with the aforementioned band members, they formed Soft White Underbelly, a name that they still use frequently. Vocalist Meltzer was replaced by Les Bronstein, with whom they recorded one unreleased LP for Elektra. Several vocalists followed before Eric Bloom would join the band in 1969. After several name changes and personnel changes, they would settle on Blue Öyster Cult. They signed with Columbia in 1971, and their debut album, this one here, would come out in late 1971. Now back to this album. As I said, the album for me was a slow burn. It took me a little while to digest it. I listened to it on steady rotation for about 2 weeks, and it finally one day it finally I believe I was working nights, and it finally hit me. At the time, I was doing an overnight gig at McDonald's, and I was by myself there at night, so I got the chance to think about stuff. And listening to this and thinking about it, it just started, the songs just started to permeate my being, as it were. The first song, the opening track, Transmen Icon, just a blistering science fiction like song that it seems out of place on this album, but it doesn't. I'm on the lamb, but I ain't no sheep. Just a bit like the band, the Welsh band Budgie, they have very unique songs. Then came The Last Days of May. Great song. Stairway to the Stars, of something that should have been a pop hit, because it just sounds that way. I will write good health to you. Stairway to the Stars. Before the Kiss, a Redcap. Just a great fun song about presumably one of the local establishments, or maybe all the local establishments that they played at in their early days. Screams in the Night. Screams in the night. Just a slow, melodious song. She's as Beautiful as a Foot. Just a fun song. And all these songs just denote to the type of band that Blue Öyster Cult was. Cities on Flame with Rock and Roll, a song that would be covered later by other bands. I believe Kiss may have covered it at one point. Iced Earth covered it. Just a great song. My Heart is Black and My Lips Are Cold. Cities on Flame with Rock and Roll. It just you just have to listen to it. It's feel the lyrics invade you. It is Workshop of the Telescopes. Just a great song. And Redeemed, a closer that is kind of a bit biblical. Kind of puts me in mind of the Flying Burrito Brothers, who some of the members went on to form the Eagles. In the bonus tracks, they had some demos. But just this album, those 10 tracks, great album. Again, my number 5. Just a fun band. Tyrannies and Mutation, the second album, and Secret Treaties are also of high recommendation. After this album, great band, great albums, great catalog. Blue Öyster Cult. All their albums are fun albums, so I highly recommend them. Go and check them out, particularly this album. It's a great introduction to the band. And that's all I have today on this episode of Musically Sound. This is episode 5. Thanks everybody for watching. Feel free to hit that like and subscribe button. Leave a comment below. Tell me what you liked, what you didn't like. And get out there and listen to some music.